Now we're going to give our player the ability to shoot back so that we can have some enemies that are tough to deal with without just trying to land on their heads. And we're going to do that by adding a new blaster script. First though, let's take a look at the blaster objects that we're going to use. We have this blue bullet prefab and we have an explosion that we can use for when it lands. The plan is to use this blaster that he already has in his hand, spawn some shots in, have them go flying off at our target, and then deal some damage or kill that target. To start, we're going to go to the player and we'll go to the scripts folder, right click, choose create, and create a new blaster script. Then we'll attach that script and open it up. Our blaster script will do two things. It's going to listen for player input and see when the player wants to shoot, and then it'll spawn the prefab for our bullet and launch that out. Now to start, I'm going to get rid of the start method and replace it with an awake because I want to grab a few components and cache them. I'll get rid of this comment line on line 7 with Control X or Shift Delete, and then in awake, I'm going to cache the player input component with some underscore player input, with a capital I there, keeping the camel case, equals, and we'll get component type player input. We'll save that off by generating a field, hit home, alt enter, and enter, and now we've got a field. Double click that private keyword and get rid of it. That player input script is right here on the player just above the blaster, and remember we've got our action map that we can double click on to bring up our available actions that we've created. We have a fire action here, and that's what I want to tie into. So let's go back to our blaster script, find our fire action, and when it's performed, let's launch a projectile, or at least spawn one. So to do that, on line 13, we'll say underscore player input dot actions, and we need to, not action events, actions, and then we use the square brace so that we can reference something in this collection or this array. I don't know if it's actually an array or a list. It's some sort of a collection here that we're going to reference by string name, and the name is going to be the same as that action name, which was fire with a capital F. So this is going to get us the action, and on that action there's an event. So we can hit the dot, go find the little lightning bolt down here, see all of the events, and choose performed. Now that's going to fire off whenever the fire method is performed, or that event will be invoked whenever the fire method is, or whenever the fire action is performed, which I think is our left click or control. We can go look at it again in the action map in a moment. Let's hit plus equals though and tie this into a method. I'm going to call this try fire. Capital T and a capital F will generate a method for it, and we should get a private void try fire with a input action callback context parameter. Now in our try fire method, we're going to start by just spawning one of those bullet prefabs. So we'll say instantiate, INSTA, there we go, instantiate, and we'll put an underscore, and I'm going to call this blaster shot prefab. We don't have a prefab for it yet, so we're going to generate a field for it first, and then we'll make this of type game object. We'll change private to serialize field so that it can be modified in the inspector, but only in the inspector. And then I'm going to move it right up here above my other private field so that my serialized fields are at the top, just the way that I like to organize them. All right, now we've got our try fire method. It doesn't have a semicolon at the end, and it doesn't know where to instantiate this blaster shot. This instantiate method is going to spawn a blaster shot, but it'll just go out whatever the position is stored on that prefab. So let's add in another parameter. Let's just do it at transform.position as the second parameter, and we'll use quaternion.identity as the third. This is going to end up using not transform.parent, transform.position. There we go. This will spawn it at the position where we've given it, so at our player's position essentially, wherever this blaster is, facing the default rotation, which is going to be just all zeros. Let's save this off, go back into Unity, assign the blaster shot prefab, make sure that that spawns, and then we'll start building up this blaster script. So here's our player with the blaster script, and we've got that blaster shot field. Let's go find the prefab, and let's start by just taking this bullet blue and dropping it right in there. I should be able to press play now, run around, click fire, and have bullets kind of spawn awkwardly on top of me. Let's see if that's the case. And here we go. Look at that. I can spawn bullets wherever I am. They spawn as fast as I click, and they're giant, facing the wrong direction, and don't move. Before we fix that though, let's go to plastic and commit our first version of the blaster. So blaster spawns game object projectiles that don't move yet. And we'll check that in.